It has been the longest off-season of SRA. The rust has been wiped off and the cars are revved up and ready to go. Welcome to SRA.
We're off and away for SRA.
And good evening, SRA Nation, and welcome to our Round 6, Division 4 here, Season 8. And we've arrived at Oulton Park, folks. Took the little plane from, well, last week at Misano, crossed over the English Canal, flew right over back to England for this Oulton Park event tonight. As usual, welcome Adam here to the stream. How's it going, man?
Yeah, it's going pretty good, and definitely eager to see what's going to happen tonight. Definitely a different set of conditions from what we've seen the last few weeks, which have been pretty ideal. We're going to throw a little bit of weather in the mix this time and see if we can't shake up those championship standings just a little bit more.
Yep, he's right. Make sure you guys have your umbrellas, ponchos, whatever you got. I don't know, grab your tea and all that. But we got a pretty inclement weather event here tonight, the first one this season 8. Let's move over to our track map to give you guys an idea of how it looks before we go over to our race broadcast and all that, and some standings before we head over. But here at Oulton Park, you can see the little cloud and little rain icon there next to Oulton Park on the screen. You can see that we are in England. The track is roughly, well, about 4.3 kilometers, 2.6 miles long, 17 turns all the way around. That's including the little kink left at the straight. But you can see it's a very technical track. I mean, this is a track that, you know, not exactly, let's say, flat all around, even when you're not going on little mountains and such, because it's got a lot of elevation changes. But the fact that it is rather wet here tonight, it's gonna make things a little bit interesting. Puddles and things, make sure you stay within the race line and things of that sort. That's gonna play a big role here tonight at Oulton. And before we head over again to our SRA feed, let's take a quick look at the standings since last week, again, round 6, as we get things going here. Currently with that lead, we have Nick Wagner, 398 points. He missed that first round 1 and has been absolutely on fire since then. We have Dudley Durag, 345 points, so just a 53-point difference holding that number 2. And we have Chris Swinney right there following. That is going to be in P3, 318 points. But then again, Andrew Berg, race winner last week, 316 points, moved quite a bit up on the standings. We have Mike Gino, P5. You have Selena holding on to that P6 right now. Eduardo Rodriguez, P7. You have P8 for White's Carver, P9, Nate Andrew, and actually with the silver lead, again, D4 silver, Walid Sadat there, 242 points, wrapping up your top 10. Taking a quick look at the back of the field, still have quite a few drivers that some have not joined us here for the season, but giving you guys an update of their current standings. And let's move over to the team standings before we head over to our feed. But you can see there with the lead, we have THR Boot, Andrew Berg, and Chris Sweeney, 634 points. A massive lead now over P2, with Comic Racing Lunar Motorsports with Jess Osborne and Selena Boomstrom, 491 points. And then not too far back on the heels of P2, we have THR Heel with Corey Nesbitt and Nick Wagner with 460 points. And the remaining of the field to see here on screen. But that being said, let's head over to our race event, as the drivers will be starting the qualifying in just a bit. Here we go. And Adam, as you can see here, we got some rain going as the drivers are lining up to get silver drivers to get things going. What do you think is gonna? What are your expectations here for tonight with the rain?
Well, definitely a lot of caution. A lot of spins side by side is going to be a lot more risky than it has been in past times. You're really going to have to be careful about picking your times to pass and how aggressively you want to push those drivers in front of you. Overall, takes practice to know in the wet line. Honestly, obviously, it's not going to be the same as your primary line, and knowing how far you need to be off that line, and knowing where certain puddles form and stuff definitely comes into play. And for some drivers, they just love the wet. They do better in that. They love how the cars handle when it's wet. So it'll be interesting to see who rises to the top that we might not normally see up that way.
Yeah, and now that you mentioned, just things always happen here. Every time I'm a part of a broadcast, something interesting happens. So if you take a quick look at your track standings there on the top right-hand side of the screen, the track is damp. So it's not necessarily wet. And that might be an advantage for the silver folks to get things rolling if it gets really, really wetter later on for the Go drivers to come out, and they might not be able to have the same pace. So it does have quite a little bit of rain there. The little icon says rain, but at the moment, at least, it actually says damp. So not greasy, because that would be a really bad bad combination, but not raining as hard as we would think it would. Again, there is this little more percentage that ACC sometimes try to throw things off, and I mean, at least for now, damp. We'll see what happens. The track is at 28 degrees. But again, yeah, like again, last night practice session was a lot more water than this. So we'll see. We do have Rufus leading the pack with the silver drivers, and we'll see. We'll soon start seeing some, pace to see what everybody's running. And hey, Go drivers, I'm not sure, folks. This might be a little bit of a interesting race if things happen, if things continue this way. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And with it not being as wet as we kind of expected it to be, it'll definitely be even more of a knife edge on how far you want to push that car and push the competitors around you. So put pressure on your competitors, and there's just as much of a chance that they make too big of a mistake and take you both out. So it definitely a race of risk management, we'll call it.
You're right. And as Rufus goes around the carousel there in the back, that fast, what you call a really, really fast left-hander leading into it, it's one of the places you have to be really careful. You just seem to have, you think you might have a little bit more grip than you actually do, and then you go for a little lawn mowing section in the grass, and you don't want to be going that fast, because right in front of you are barriers and tires, which will practically end your race at that point. So, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. And last night, and one thing I noticed on the practice race, not many folks joined in for that practice. There were a lot of more Division 4 drivers, but Division 3, which was part of the same practice race, there was only, I believe, 5 drivers. So it's like didn't want to practice. We're just going to take it as it is for Division 3. But Division 4 here, I did not see quite a few drivers from here that are, basically joined here tonight. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out on the rain, again, with the dry line. Maybe got to make sure you get your tire pressures in the correct, basically, range for what you call here an ACC. If not, you might get a little too hot, overinflated, and you got to start using the wet line to cool them off. So, we'll see. I mean, honestly, I really don't know what's going to happen when it all comes down to it, especially with the current qualifying scenario we got going on with a damp scenario now and a lot of rain coming down now, maybe getting the track a little bit more wet than what you see. So Ruffus, by the way, did put in his first lap. He's actually P3 at the Mount Adams, who has been having a pretty good race on his Porsche. He's currently with the pole. It's a pretty good first lap. It's a 39.642. So he's got a great lap going on with his Porsche. He is following what I see Herrera right ahead of him. I mean, fortunately cannot do any overtakes in qualifying unless you're giving a signal. But yeah, I mean, again, Adams again has been doing quite well. So we'll see what he's able to get things going here at Oulton. Looks like we finally got a livery update for him. I believe maybe a session or two ago we didn't have that set. But looks like pretty nice. He's got that 808 Jim Weed sleeping right next to him. It looks like he's abandoned this lap, at least for now, as he's getting too close to her and letting other folks through. And maybe he should give it a try one more time. It's got about still 5 minutes to go on qualifying for the silver folks here. We're going to switch over to Ruffus as he's about to finish his lap. Going to maybe improve a little. Might take the P3 from Hacksaw. Crosses line, but nope, not able to. Still on that provisional P4. Herrera now on a pretty good lap, is improving quite a bit based on his first lap, and he was way down there in P10. Coming around the last turn, he should move up quite a few spots as he crosses the line, getting comfy with the car. And 5 spots he goes, P5, Herrera. Adams with a yellow. So look like he's just pulled over to the side there on the last turn and sort of waiting for some drivers to come by, but that's going to affect his, well, his start of his lap here. I don't think that's going to be his best lap, at least this is coming up, but we'll see what he's able to do. Take a little drive here with a Herrera, who is trying to improve once again, getting that BMW power around the carousel in the back. He's got a good half a second improvement at the moment, and then we shoot him up all the way to P3 if he can keep this up. Oh, we might have gone a little too deep on the brakes there. Thought this was the dry. And this is what happens during the race, folks. When it's raining, got to be really careful. And again, not all the turns are going to be different as far as your brake markers. Some of them are, well, maybe the same, but especially coming down at full speed at some turn, that's when you're going to have to really remember this track is not dry. As he pulls over.
Throwing the downhill into the mix right before that chicane definitely makes that turn a little more complicated, even in the damp, just because you got extra momentum behind and gravity behind you, trying to push that car through the brakes.
Following Yasirski now, pretty good lap coming through as it goes through the last turn here. Out onto the main straight he goes, around the quick left into the start, and we'll see if he's able to move up. Yep. And puts his Lamborghini down, up to P4, as right behind him, Hacksaw goes ahead and steals the pole from Adams. Adams gonna try to go for it again as he did not take that from Hacksaw. So Hacksaw with a provisional pole for the silver drivers on the McLaren.
Yeah, one thing these McLaren drivers are hoping for is that it stays, or it gets pretty wet, because that's their opportunity to be quicker and be able to take the same line that some of these front engine cars and others with different weight distribution can take advantage of, going over curves and extending the track to the outside a little bit farther than the McLaren might be able to. So the wet will probably actually play into their hands if we do see an increase in the dampness. Otherwise, I think we might see a few of these BMWs and other makes start to rise to the top as a change from the last few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. McLaren, this is not necessarily the best track for the McLaren. Personal experience, you want to avoid the curbs all around, and the fact that when it's rainy, you tend to avoid most curbs, if not all of them, so that might play a little bit of, I mean, to benefit to the McLarens here, as other drivers might not be able to use the curbs they normally would, especially BMWs, like you mentioned. Front engine here is pretty strong. I would think the BMWs would shoot themselves to the top, but so far, Hacksaw with that lead. And Adams with a hell of a lap, by the way, coming through. Like, absolutely flying on this. Maybe found that dry line, and he's got about to improve and shoot himself to P1. And he does. Now basically half a second faster than Hacksaw. So he saw that pole loss. He's like, nope, I'm coming back for it, and puts his Porsche in P1. So yeah, I'll tell you who's improving at the moment. Still ways to go on his lap. He's just coming around the carousel, but Herrera's trying to go for it again. He's about a second and a half from the leader, but he's got a whole second he's gaining on this lap. That would shoot him up possibly to P5. He remembered this time around to not make a mistake on that turn, as he shot himself wide earlier. Let's take a little bit of a passenger view again here with the BMW. As we saw, looks like Space Baker parked there on the left side of the track. Onto the pit he goes.
And speaking of pits, do you have any insight into how that's going to work out for us this weekend, as far as pit entry and exit, how that might work for these drivers during the race?
I mean, honestly, when it comes down to that, for this race, I see Herrera's getting off the road there really quickly, abandons that lap. But yeah, I mean, pit entry here, and specifically, I was watching the race yesterday, and it's rather fast. I mean, this is not a long pit entry like where you've been kind of seeing lately, like Misano and something like Spa. Obviously, that's incredibly long. But and again, the fact that it's wet, you're not doing tire changes. My take on this is, if I'm around people and you get all that spray coming on your windshield and you can't see much ahead of you, I would take my chances heading into a pit and just getting that out of the way, so I can maybe pace myself a little better, rather than deal with just the spray coming from the car ahead of you all the time. So, but that's what I would say. That's my take on here, and some people might think different, but that's just what I would think. So,
you see the herd of gold drivers coming down the hill. Start their first lap here.
I see their out lap. Great view from the track side here at Oulton, as they are going to get things ready. Yes, and by the way, yes, silver qualifying is effectively over, and we do have the gold drivers going to give their time for them to give a go. Now the track is still damp, and from the looks of it, it's just not raining much. So I mean, it's going to be very interesting if the race stays this way, but I don't think so. And we're switching over to Jess Osborne. I know we talked about earlier in the chat. He says everybody needs to pray for him tonight. Well, guys, start your prayers. The track isn't as wet as you would expect here, so these guys are going to be pushing, and especially on the Porsche. And he's going to go for a little ride along here with Jess and see how he's following. He does have a couple of cars ahead of him. Looks like directly ahead of him, that is Potvin. And let's take a look at his outside view from his Porsche. But yeah, track's still damp, and looks like, based on the weather forecast here in game, looks like next 10 minutes is going to be about the same. And I mean, normally you would see really, really wet conditions, and that's what we've actually seen from the practice. And all the folks have been practicing here so far at Oulton. But so that's, wet conditions always throw a curveball. That's always something like that. All of a sudden, it isn't what you expected. As a matter of fact, a few seasons back, it was a vision I was broadcasting. Everybody expected full-blown rain, and we swap over to the race, and it was completely dry. And everybody was like, what happened? What is going on? And yeah, it was kind of like a frenzy. Everybody trying to adjust themselves, pressure, the new setups off the fly. It was pretty interesting to see how that went. So we'll see if it happens again. crossing the finish line here with Jess. We'll see where he ends up to. Puts his Porsche at P5. So great lap to start things off here. We do have White Scarver, and we talked that earlier about BMWs, and looks like he's not messing around at all, and he's already put his BMW at the lead, at the pole for a good half a second over Big Daddy, who is now P2, Adams P3. So Go drivers are benefiting from these conditions so far, nothing wetter than you would expect. First lap through as well, we have now Do Right, Dudley, P4. Andy Berg has put his McLaren at P5. So Osborne is down to P7 now. White Scarver with that lead still. Not the greatest lap coming through at the moment. Maybe a little issue there earlier on the lap, so he's going to be giving a try again. Now I will switch over to Dudley. He's got a pretty good lap coming through. Not enough for the lead, but maybe a P2 so far.
Yeah, he's looking good as we see our normal Gold driver culprits rise to the top of the leaderboard once again. White Scarver, of course, with that BMW, probably going to have a little bit more grip and a little bit more freedom to take curbs and stuff over some of these other mid-engine drivers, but we'll see if we can hang on to that provisional pole as we come to 5 minutes left in qualifying.
Now he did lose some of that gain he had earlier on that Sector 2, so he's probably going to give it a try again, but looking at the current pace, a little ahead of him, we have Berg, who looks like he's improving on his lap. He might shoot maybe to P3. Keep an eye here as he crosses the line. P4, so not able to get P3 from Adams. Going to give it a try again. And we have Maxwell with a pretty big improvement so far, about a half a second almost over his personal best so far. He's in P8. Absolutely pushing, and oh, looks like he's just a little too much and end up doing a track cut and validating his lap. He's going to go for it once again. And a couple drivers have not yet put a valid time. And it looks like we haven't seen Wagner, by the way, season leader. He's still on his outlap, so to speak. We'll see if he's able to put something through right off the bat. And as he crosses the line, and it's P19 for Wagner, so on his best effort so far. He's going to go in and give it a try again. It's about 3 minutes and 40 seconds to go.
And of course, Wagner coming off 2 runner-up finishes in a row at both Nürburgring and Misano. Looking to get back in victory lane. Of course, he had that 1 victory already at Coda, his very first race of the season. He missed Zandvoort, which was the first race out of the gate, but definitely has been super consistent since then. He hasn't finished outside the top 4 so far, so definitely looking for another podium if he can overcome qualifying troubles before the end here.
Yeah, Wagner had come out actually with that win in Nürburgring, but you know, penalties and Blythe and things of that sort kind of changed things around. But you know, he's hungry for that win, and last night at the practice race, he actually did take the win for the D4 division. So we know he's got some pace here. You talked to Wagner a few times, he says he doesn't, and he's not going to be that quick. And then all of a sudden, he's just up there. So give him a few minutes there to get himself up and running. He is right back there at the top.
Well, after a while, you'll learn just not to take Gold drivers seriously when they start being modest, because they'll be modest, and the next second they put it on the pole by 4/10.
We always see that with the D1 drivers there. Oh, no, I have no idea what I'm doing this week, and all of a sudden there's an alien time on the board. Like, I guess God knows what happens if you actually knew what you were doing, right? It's like, come on. Track looks like it's getting wetter, by the way, as a lot of drivers are actually not able to keep it on the track or then validating their laps. The only driver currently improving just a bit is actually Dudley, right here in P6. Everybody else has invalidated their laps somehow. Wagner has put his McLaren in P7, by the way, so he's finally able to get that improvement. But looks like Dudley's just, right now, if he's able to keep this up, he could snag the pole from White Scarver. But White Scarver with that first lap of his just came and left nothing on the table. Said, I'm going to put this on right now, and he's out there for another lap. But just a minute and a half left, and this is going to be This might come down to the wire. And so far, if Dudley's able to get this turn right, we'll take a quick look if he's able to get that around. Oh, he's losing a little bit of time there towards the end. That might cost him the pole, but maybe a P2. So, yep, he does. Oh, my goodness.
Justin P2 by 500ths.
And a white
Definitely was going
scarver.
to be close. Just got a little shaky off the last corner and lost just enough to keep him in P2. So White Carver's probably breathing a sigh of relief now, although Durite will have one more shot at it.
Yeah, and White Scarver not currently improving, but he might have one last chance to defend his pole. Maybe he wants to do that as Dudley right now. Oh, and Dudley goes wide, and oh man, that's game over for him. So it'll be at least a P2 for him, as he won't have time to go around for another lap. So, oh, you hate to see that right at the end. So White Scarver so far with that pole not improving. And currently, we have to switch back over to Maxwell, by the way. He's about to take the pole if he's keep this up on the last turn. And it looks like he might snag that pole last second. I know White Scarver's looking at this, and look at that. Oh. He never, and a qualifying D4 never ceases to amaze us here.
No, it doesn't. Just when you think you can breathe a sigh of relief, someone like Maxwell comes out of nowhere and goes from, I believe, 13th up to pole with a nearly second faster lap.
Just unbelievable lapping for him. Big Daddy tried to improve himself too, but not able to. Poe might be an improvement there as he goes a little wide, and he validates that lap and not able to get that going. White Scarver has actually a little bit of an improvement, so he might take that pole back. I mean, this is beginning of his lap, so he got crossed right on time, but we'll keep an eye on White Scarver here and see if he's able to take that back. Oh,
Yeah, also,
he got a little loose.
Like, Pat Cockcroft toward the rear. He's got about 2 to 3 tenths up on his best, so he could stand to get into the top 10.
That could very well switch over to Wagner as he's going through the last turn here, so that could get him some positions. Maybe ahead of Berg and Adams. Maybe just a Berg, maybe a P7. And not able to. Actually loses the time.
Looks like he abandoned the lap after the
little mistake there at the end, but switching back over. Maxwell not improving his time, but looks like he won't need to. But what a lap from Maxwell. I was just talking about him earlier, as in he's maybe having some issues. He's practicing pit entry there, Maxwell. He's like, good for him. He don't want to lose that right at the end. So that's it, qualifying, folks. Oh, wow, what a lap. Maxwell took in that pole right at the end, sending White Scarver probably crushed at the moment, saying, I almost had that pole, but he's still a P2 there at the front. So we'll definitely, still great. I mean, that's probably White Scarver best qualifying session so far. So P3, Dudley was able to put his McLaren there at the top, and followed by Big Daddy in P4. Sweeney, which we haven't seen him, I haven't talked to him too much, but he's been putting a lot of practice, is actually in P5. So he's up there with Adams in P6 for the first silver driver. We have Berg there in P7, followed by Wagner P8. And we have Poe in P9, and rounding out your top 10 is Rodriguez with that P10. So, yep, track here as well. And you can take a look now. Not sure how much this might change. It is wet, folks. Wet, and forecast maybe a little bit less rain, as you can see there on the top. But then we have a lot of rain once again. So we'll keep an eye and see how this is going to roll out. All right, folks, and just before we get things started, let's do a quick switch over to Haley first. Actually, we're going to go ahead and switch to the leader, do a quick drive over down between the cars as we normally do. Here we go. We're not taking too much of the time, but you can see super wet here at Oulton Park, folks. Here we go. Let's go down the road. We have Maxwell, White Scarver. We're going to do this quickly, folks. We have Dudley, Big Daddy, Swinney, Adams, Berg, Wagner, Poe, Rodriguez, Osborne, Cockroft. We have Boomstra, Potvin, Walkowicz, Hacksaw, Lee, Space Baker, Ruffus, Harold, Yazurski, Barker, Rose, Polyan, Katavkar, Herrera, Wicks, Friday, Otero, Master Morrison, and LaFlamme, who had a unfortunate, was not allowed to qualify this time around, and so unfortunately for Morrison as well. That's why you see them on the back of the field as penalties kicked in. But that's it, folks. About 3 seconds to go, and Maxwell will lead us into our outlap as we get things going here. 1 hour to go here at Oulton Park, folks. As you can see the difference now, and if you guys are watching there on YouTube and just joined us, if you could take a quick look and go back a bit as far as qualifying conditions went, if you guys want to just scroll back on the time there a bit, you can see that track was not this wet. That is something that it was not nearly this wet. So interesting to see here now. It is full wet conditions, what they have been practicing on for quite a bit. And we should expect.
You know what that means? It's going to spice things up a little for the race because they qualified and got used to just damp conditions, and now they got full-on wet conditions to contend with. So people that were faster in qualifying might lose a little pace here. We'll see.
Adjust on the fly. Adjust on the fly. This is exactly when we come down with a rain event, folks. And this is where, you know, if you got your PSIs on target, again, target PSIs for wet conditions in ACC is roughly between 29.5 to 31. It also means also if it gets a little bit dry, you want to make sure your tires don't get overheated, so you can maybe get off the race line, switch over to the wet line, and that might bring your PSIs down if you're overinflated. Not much room to do here at Oulton Park because you don't have a lot of, basically practically no straights here, really, other than before the carousel for a little bit. But we'll see. We'll see. It's going to be interesting to see how things unfold here tonight. And just before we get things started here, just checking the chat. Appreciate you guys tuning in. I hope you guys will enjoy the broadcast tonight here for D4. We do have a total of 32 drivers so far tonight for the race. And just taking a look here, as again, everybody talked about earlier, and everybody needs to pray for Jess. Jess, he is P11. That's pretty good. You're almost there on the top 10. Looks like some praying has been happening. He's got himself up there on the upper half of the field. Let me see if he's offer some bread. We have Jeffries checking in. What's going on, Mike? A couple of guys here. I'm missing the only race of the season, Daniels. Well, hopefully you're back next week at Indy, and it'll be dry conditions instead. And some folks just say hate the rain. Rain is fun, man. I'll tell you that. It's almost like you know what? You could actually win a race you're not even expecting. That's actually happened to me before. That's one of the races I ended up winning, was on the rain. And Jeffrey's commentary team is fire, very comfortable. Appreciate the comment, Mike. But thanks for joining in for the broadcast as we are about to get things started. Last turn we go, and soon we go for green. Ferrari leading the entire field, and just his teammate, what I believe is Ruff, is down in P19. So let's go. Let's switch to a high cam here. Oh,
and green lights are on, and we are
look
away.
At this. Oh man, look right off the bat though, Adam. 2 drive-throughs, Maxo and Dudley. Maybe pushed a little too hard there at the start. So, oh man, you just hate to see that right at the start of the race. So that's going to throw a hex on Maxwell's plan and Dudley's plan now. They are up front, which they can catch up in quite a few drive-thrus, to be honest. If I look it down the line, we have Master as well, and Morrison with a plus 30. I believe that actually has to do with his previous penalties. So 3 drive-thrus should get things going as White Scarver is off. White Scarver has gone off the field. Trying to catch him here on the stream, but man, he's just dropping positions over and over. Looks like he is gone. Let's take a look at the replay here really quickly. Oh, looks like Adams got it, but here, let's switch back about 30 seconds and see what happened. And I talked about this during qualifying. I apologize if I did that to you, Austin, but going a little too deep on that turn is where you think it's dry, and it's unfortunate you can go wide into the grass and he hit that barrier. So right at the start of the race, thankfully he avoided everybody, which is a good thing, and it's early enough that he can catch up. So we'll switch back over to him later in the race. And Adams as well has gone wide. Rodriguez, so a couple of drivers just going wide and pushing a little too hard at the start on lap 1. So, oh man.
Yeah, we'll see how do right with a little bit of an off. He's going to drop down to 5th now as Maxwell hits the pits from the lead, so he's going to get his pit out of the way.
And that gives Sweeney the lead, by the way, who's currently leading the pack of cars, and he has moved up basically 5 spots. Excuse me, 4. He started P5, so no drive-throughs for him, leading the whole pack. Big Daddy in 2nd. Andrew Berg has moved up to 3rd, and Wagner in 4th. So all this switcheroo going on at the front, drive-throughs and all, has benefited a few drivers. And Maxwell, let's take a look and see what's going on. Maxwell spun. We need to take a look at the replay here, folks, and see what is going on as he merged back into the track. Oh, looks like that might be a little bit of a tap from Space Baker.
Tap, but that's all it takes in the wet.
Minor tap too, and looks like his Sursky has gone wide as well. So, oh my goodness, just a whoa.
Avoided damage initially, but just after the replay cut off, he ended up getting hit.
A little tap, right?
One of the cars trying to pass him in the front end, so he very well might have front yard damage after that.
And you see that. Hate to see that at the start of the race too. It's Friday as well has gone wide, so these drivers are pushing a little too hard here with this rain coming down. Remember,
Said
folks,
it might happen. Different conditions from qualifying to race. This is what you get.
You called it. I mean, we see a little bit of a dry line forming where the cars are going, but it doesn't mean you can completely push so hard. You end up losing it. Oh, man. And Morrison still has to serve that 30 seconds, I believe. And again, that's from previous event at Misano, so you serve that once he pits. But Friday's back on track.
Rodriguez and Cube Master both off track as well.
Oh man, there's just a lot of people on off track. Let's take a look at the replay on that. He's merging in, you can see, but oh man, what a start! We're in lap 3. This is all we've had so far, and a lot of things happen here at the start. Just pushing a little too hard, and tires maybe not up to their optimal pressures and heat, and I don't see many folks driving. I mean, a few drivers have already got their pit stop out of the way, but other than that, everybody has stayed out.
And back up front, new fast lap for Big Daddy is a 40.9. Quite a bit better than Sweeney's last lap, and we see him cutting the lead down from about 1.2 down to just 0.8 seconds at this point.
Yeah, Daddy with the fast lap, as you said, and the only driver on the 40 so far, so you can see quite a little bit slower than our qualifying session was. We saw, I believe, drivers dip into the 39s, and doesn't seem possible with this speed and also more fuel on the car, but really wet. It's just really, really wet compared to the qualifying session. And maybe drivers who raced last night on their practice race might benefit them on the long run. They get on they get comfortable enough on the racing conditions and just keep it consistent for the next, well, 54 minutes.
Yeah, and that's going to be the name of the game for today. Is just exactly that. Like you said, is consistency, 100%. Which is why we saw a lot of drivers elect not to do the practice race and not really get too comfortable with a certain set of conditions. They wanted to go into the race just feel out what was there and try to do their best just to survive rather than try to set the fastest lap times.
Yeah, and we see it maybe a little mistake earlier from Berg, by the way. He's actually dropped to P6. He saw Cube Master joining in from the pits, and I don't think Cube Master was aware that Berg was there. Almost positioned his car directly ahead of him. Berg had to kind of coast for a little bit and make sure he didn't totally end it, as Berg is trying to go around the carousel boomstra, looking on the inside as they go through the little chicane. Berg was not part of the practice session yesterday. He's having some trouble with the car. He's going wide, lost the position to Boomstra, and also looks like Cockcroft and Walkowicz. So he's dropping a few spots, dropped to P9. He's gonna have to regain his focus and try to get things rolling here. Yeah, race winner from Misano. And Osborne, P5. Hey, looks like those sprays are working. Moving up, Jess. Let's go. Let's go. Bring your Porsche up to the front. Followed by his teammate. Well, Selena Boomstra herself. Not too far back.
Yeah, P11 to P5 in a very short amount of time. Just definitely moving up the board very rapidly.
We're going to follow Jess in the little cockpit view here for a bit and see what he sees from his windshield. I see it's quiet.
A lot of rain.
A lot of rain. You can see that spray is just... And when you get close to the car ahead of you, it's really not that... It's not easy at all. It's almost like you don't want to be behind the car. You might as well take maybe in the non-racing line, and if it's wide enough, but Oulton's such a narrow track. Still really hard to keep things together as he almost goes wide there at the quick lefty before the carousel, and ooh, holding on, holding on.
The part is, if it was real life, that spray would probably be twice as bad, but ACC, just the limitations of the particle effects and everything limit that somewhat, so it really isn't that bad for us in the sim, but real life definitely you would definitely want to be choosing a different line if you're following someone, because it would just be a whiteout if you're following directly.
Yeah, and this is what Poe ahead of Osborne is sending over to him. There you can see spray just all over the place. But so far, again, both Osborne and Boomstra holding on to that P2 on the team standings, doing pretty well here at Oulton Park so far. So
it's been funny. I've noticed about every time I see a car come through Knickerbrook at the bottom of the hill there after the chicane, almost every single one of them is doing a tank slapper off that corner.
Maybe that's what
So
they figured
fun
out. Maybe this is the safest way. I mean, who knows? I guess I'll find out tomorrow.
That you will. We'll say our prayers for you as well.
Yeah, I'll definitely need them. Harold, by the way, P22 has dropped down, made a mistake. Let's take a look at the replay and see what happened. I caught him right at the end. Looks like he actually has gone wide into turn one and just maybe a little too much curb, and into the wall he goes. Looks like he does have some damage as he rejoins safely there right behind Potvin and Herrera. So he has not yet pitted, which is, I would say, I mean, at least he'll take his time to get that out of the way if there's major damage. We'll see if he decides to go into the pits, and nope, keeps this car out. So major damage. Looks like his car is okay.
As we see Lee go around back in 11th position, he's going to lose a spot to Hacksaw.
Oh, man.
Several others as he's waiting for clearance.
That is a dangerous place to be on there at that turn. Good thing it's on the inside where most cars don't go. He's going to have to wait. There is a huge tray. Maybe now he might be able to get his car in once he clears here, but got to keep it on the left side of the road, and you can see as he's trying to be as careful.
Having to wait for that much traffic.
He's dropped way down to P20. He was in P10, so. And Maxwell out once again. So let's go back here and see what happened as he's, caught him right at the end, but he just slid on basically turn 2. The sweeping left right after the pits and pushed a little too hard there, and looks like there was no contact with anybody this time around, just pushed a little too hard and dropped down to P27. But he's already taken care of his pit, so a few positions ahead of that once pits get taken care of. But Max was such a great qualifying, but not able to keep up that same consistency, at least here on the race. I'm having trouble here, Adam. I'm trying to catch everything that's going on, and it's like I can't keep up. So many things going on.
see that yellow tag come up on our timing and scoring quite often. It's hard to pick and choose.
We try to switch as fast as we can. We're like, oh my God, another yellow here. Oh geez, another one went off. Another one.
I suppose while we wait for the next one to happen, we can maybe jump on board with Cockcroft as he's on the attack, the back end of Selena Boonstra's Porsche.
Let's go. Let's go to Cockcroft, following him. Porsche
Also
battle.
Walkowicz
There we go.
inserting himself in the picture too.
As he backs off, and yes, Walkowicz coming through with his BMW. As they go around one of the interesting sections. This turn here where Cockcroft is actually very infamous back in the early days of the track, where that chicane did not exist. You just basically keep going straight, and unfortunately, driver lost his life going a little too fast there. And this is back in the early, I'd say, 60s. So that's why they added that chicane to slow everybody down there. It's just really, really dangerous. But things of racing, unfortunate. Cockcroft takes a very deep inside line, but Selena Boonstra just holding on. And as you mentioned, let's go to TV camera here for a second. Walkowicz, a little bit of a train building here, and Berg, who had made a few mistakes there earlier, just kind of closely following P9. And by the way, Swinney's still holding on to that lead. Previous lap was a 40 exact, basically a 140.000. Hit the lottery there on that lap, and then Big Daddy with a 39.850. And Wagner just about 4 seconds behind. And checking on the chat, Daniel saying Cube Master's not having a good day. Yeah, unfortunately he is not. He's dropped down to last position on the standings so far. And maybe that could be his drop round if that's the case. He's been doing, you know, reasonably well throughout the season. And he's got another yellow, as we just talked about that. He's gone off track once again. But back on he goes. No issues there. Looks like everybody's just coming close in. But yeah, not necessarily the best race to have. But remember, if you finish and bring your car to the finish line, you still earn some points, as the top 40 drivers do earn a bit of points. And every little bit can count at the end. So. And right now, D closes battle here on track. I'd say Boonstra leading Cockcroft, and then Walkowicz not too far back at all. And this is a situation where, oh man, I just find myself in situations like this. If I'm here and I'm dealing with this, especially Walkowicz at this case, I'll be like, I'm gonna try to get my pit in now, and maybe I undercut him, maybe not, but at least I'll take my chances. So let's go to Walkowicz internal view for a bit here, and it'll follow through as what he's seeing.
Might even be able to pick up on some of the differences in driving line that he's using compared to some of the other cars here. His BMW just should be able to take advantage curbs and things just a little bit more than the rest of the cars. But we'll see if he's actually taking a line close enough to the apex to use curbs or not.
Yeah, he's being very careful with his inputs, though. He knows it's raining. He's just, you know, keeping that. Maybe it was either one of these Porsches makes a little mistake. You know, I'll just, you know, pace myself out here. I'm in no rush, he says, so.
Speaking of inputs, they're going to turn this into a drinking game pretty soon, but that Porsche 2 cars ahead of him got to be having some fun with the inputs tonight on the joystick, on the controller instead of a wheel like the rest of these people.
Oh, you know, we're going to have to ask Selena, how's your hand? How are your hands after this race? I don't know how she's doing it up there, but she's holding on. And
Thumb got whiplash from repeated lock-to-lock steering inputs.
Need to find a doctor for surgery after this race. Oh, man. And one thing to point out, by the way, and for you guys just joining us again, you see this is a pretty wet race so far, but if you take a quick look at the top where you see the track conditions, in about 30 minutes or so, it says it's going to be more rain. It's bad enough right now. You can see it's pretty bad, but it's supposed to be die down a little bit in about 10 minutes or so, but then basically full blast once again. So
yep, we're gonna get rain 2.0.
It's just, I don't see the track getting dry, but that would be crazy. I mean, you could get greasy if you get less rain, and that is a recipe for disaster. But I don't think the the weather people here has kind of spared us from that kind of event. So we talk about ACC Payan off track as well. Again, trying to catch all drivers on track. He rejoins. It's right there on turn 1. Made he go a little too wide with his Audi. But back on track he goes. Didn't lose much time. So it's good to see that. You know who's doing quite well so far is actually Laflamme, who actually had no qualifying. Started at the back of the field. And he's moved up quite a few spots here, even considering the fact he has not yet pitted. You know, he can maybe consider himself as not being last for now. And we have Wicks here also holding Morrison. Morrison as well started at the back of the field, and he has moved up a lot of positions. He is, actually just positioned ahead of Laflamme, but looks like he's about 4 seconds ahead of him. So both drivers actually benefiting from the back of the field. And at this point, I'll take it. I'll take it whatever I can get. When you switch to back here to Boomstra, so you guys get a nice track view on screen. But Boomstra still, by the way, holding off Cockcroft there. And Walkowicz and Berg is actually closing in that gap. He was a good 3-4 seconds behind after he had that one mistake. But you can see this is going to be a 4-car train very soon.
Yeah, under attack quite a few times, but Slim is still managing to hold on to that 6th position despite all that. Only about the past 10 minutes or so, had Cockcroft and Walkowicz right there within striking distance, but really no mistakes to speak of so far that have been able to be exploited by those other two drivers.
Yeah, and last night, practice race, Cockcroft was actually doing quite well. And he was following Wagner there for the D4 win between the drivers. And he didn't qualify as well as you would expect it, but he's actually gained 5 spots. He's qualified P12. But he's putting some pressure in Selena. It's going to be interesting. This is... maybe he feels he's being held back a bit, but Selena doing an outstanding job in defending here, using the entire track, and looks like somebody ahead of looks Wagner.
Wagner
ahead
of really loose off that corner and had to almost completely stop as Selena.
Oh, look at this!
Quick avoidance action to not run over the back of him.
And
definitely some good heads-up driving there, but.
He slotted himself in between the cars, and he's like, all right, here we go. Oh, my goodness. He almost got so close to Cockcroft. He was actually battling earlier. Again, yesterday on the practice race, and we'll see if he's able to nail that pit. We'll see who comes out ahead here on this pit.
Probably figures he's throwing that lap away anyway. Might as well take the pit.
Oh, they're coming out together. It looks like Wagner might have gotten that ahead of Cockcroft. He did. Just a tad bit ahead. Wagner nailed this pit.
With that stop,
yes.
That stop, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that 1 second difference. It was a 5-second pit for Wagner, and taking a look at Cockcroft, it was a 6 seconds. And we talk about racing close enough, that can mean a position gain right here. And even though he made a mistake, he'll be working his way back up.
Now, someone needs to tell Pat he's going to ruin his average finish with being that high up the order, because he's got 3 12th place finishes and a 13th, so you can't say that Pat's not consistent.
He is very consistent. I think he wants to be inconsistent after today. He wants to break that for sure. He's like, I'll take the inconsistency.
To the positive, it's all right. So, yeah, we should have a new game every week. How many positions above or below 12th does Pat finish?
We'll check in with him and say, I'm sure he will be happy he's in the top 10. It's like, I don't care how consistent I am in P12 or P13. I want to be a top 10, and I'm happy. And he's had a streak of bad luck, actually. He's had a few good races where things just, towards the end, didn't work out for him. So, hopefully today here in the rain, he will be breaking that curse. As Wagner has opened up a little bit of about a second lead. And directly ahead of Wagner, by the way, is Morrison, has yet to pit. Looks like Morrison getting on the inside there. Maybe his tires might be a little too overinflated and hot, maybe. Trying to cool them off a bit. And it looks like Wagner also taking that inside line, maybe having some issues with the tires. And again, something that can easily happen in the rain. And we'll let these folks battle for a bit as we're going to switch back to Boomstra, and now who's being followed by Walkowicz. Remember, just earlier, Pat Cockcroft was basically following Boomstra so close, and Walkowicz just kind of hovering there on the back about a second or so. And now Walkowicz closing in Boomstra, and Berg not too far back. So this, and then Selena doing everything she can with that Porsche, making it as wide as possible and holding on to a provisional P5.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a hard pass for Walkowicz to make there. Just he's been a lot better on the brakes than Boomstra has. Of course, the Porsche need to back up your entry just a little bit to maximize what it's good at, which is off-corner launch. So definitely the difference in following a Porsche. We mentioned it so many times last week. If you have to try to pass a Porsche, it's one of the hardest cars to pass just because of how early they get on the brakes and how fast they get off the corners. As he's going to abandon that chase actually and dive to the pits.
He did. He was having none of that and maybe try an undercut if they think you have a bit of better pace than Boomstra. And now Berg has got some clean air for a little bit. I'd say all the air is entirely clear tonight with this rain, but at least you have some clear room to try to catch up. And Berg, again, is qualified in 7th, and he is running 6th right now provisionally once all the pits are out of the way. And
nice seamless pit stop for Walkowicz right there. 5 seconds and away. Couldn't ask for better.
And looking at the chat, we have, I believe, my boy Marty the Space Baker. Let's go ahead and tag along with Space Baker for just a bit. That's Dudley's teammate. And he's doing quite well so far. He's P9, yet to pit. But keeping it together there, he's following Ruffless closely there for that position. And Space Baker actually, by the way, P18 to start the race. And I mean, quite a few drivers that pit already, but still keeping it together. As Walkowicz and Cockcroft, an issue here between the two. Oh my goodness, and Walkowicz just didn't see the region. Let's take a look at the replay. Cockcroft and Walkowicz leading into that chicane, just, oh my goodness, just side by side. Cockcroft, there was a little bit of a tap there. Walkowicz trying to merge back in.
Laflamme gets involved as well.
A little bit of a tap there. Look at major damage, but
so Walkowicz just didn't leave space on the inside through the side. Was good through the first part of that chicane, but then the second part just didn't leave quite enough room for Cockcroft to get his Porsche in there. Didn't realize he was still alongside. Might have thought he completed the pass, but that wasn't the case, unfortunately. But didn't lose too much there. Lost a couple spots, but they should still be able to get their way back up there.
Yeah, and Cockcroft now gained a position officially, but Laflamme has basically gone ahead between both drivers. And Cockcroft for his lap was a good, well, looking at it, about a 7-second loss based on that little tap, but he's going to go for it again. He's going to go after Laflamme now. It's so hard to keep up with the yellow, and it looks like Rodriguez with a yellow, and we're going to take a look at the replay here as well. Following Herrera super close on the inside, and a tap. Oh my goodness. I don't think he expected that going on. Herrera is back on track. A little bit of a loss, but Rodriguez being the one that lost the most amount of time, and Rodriguez has already pit, so not having his best event here at Oulton. You know who has already
a dry
pit?
track that might have worked, but I just don't think they're going to make that move work in the wet.
You know, interestingly enough, that is one of the parts of the track that you can attempt an overtake if you get a better exit way back there on the turn. But on the wet is just really, really tough.
And the second layer to it is people aren't expecting you to make that kind of move in the wet. They probably think you're crazy for even trying, so they're really not looking for it.
I think Herrera,
so when you do it, you know, it's going to catch them off guard.
And I don't think Herrera was expecting that Porsche to be on the inside all of a sudden. Oh man, you're way late on your brakes. Oh boy. And following Dudley here for a bit, I know he had that drive through, at least trying to work his way back up the field, but he does have the fastest lap of the race, a 39.152. So very unfortunate to see that drive through at the start as a little bit ahead of him. Potvin, another yellow up ahead, and we're going to take a look at the replay of that as well. And negotiating around the turn here, and looks like he pushed a little too hard on the grass, and oh, there goes the rear. It's a small tap there on the barrier. Looks like his car is okay. And yeah, back on track he goes. Track, by the way, and we talked about it was going to quiet down a little bit as far as rain goes, is back to damp. And I mean, these drivers have to adjust on the fly here. That might be a little bit of an issue, and again, why drivers might be going off, not expecting much here. As Catawba car, by the way, with a drive-through, P16 at the moment, but you have to serve that. He has not yet pit.
Yeah, we see those lap times dropping back down into the 39s, of course, which most of them were for qualifying. I think we had a couple 38s for qualifying, but we still may see that as the track starts to dry and that the dry line starts to widen a bit, giving these drivers a little more option as far as where they're going to make their corner entries and exits, and how late on the brakes they get.
Yeah, that damp again does get it. Again, we talked about in the qualifying a little bit faster than just being entirely wet, and it does have less rain, at least for the next 10 minutes. So we should see a couple of faster laps from everybody here. Up until about 30 minutes, again, by towards the end of the race, looks like it's going to get really wet again. So we'll see what these drivers are able to adjust as Berg head into the pits. See if he's able to get that pit in and out of the way. It looks like his pit stop was not the best. It was a good 9 seconds spent on the pit. Maybe a little bit of a damage earlier. It looks like he'll be coming ahead, right ahead of Cockcroft. So directly ahead again. He was following Cockcroft and Boomster earlier, but then that Cockcroft incident with Walkowicz has given Berg the position. So benefited from those incidents. As you can see, Cockcroft, Laflamme going on the wet, trying to get their tires to cool off. And the damp track might be affecting them negatively as Berg goes a little too wide onto the grass. And they're going to battle this down to the chicane here as Cockcroft might have taken the position back. And Berg forcing Cockcroft onto the grass, trying to switch. And look at Laflamme just coming through them both. And now Berg with the inside line, and oh boy, here we go. Who can brake later?
Ideally, it should be the outside. Berg's going to play it cautious, and Cockcroft's going to stay alongside.
But Cockcroft's going to cost him the position.
Yeah.
From Laflamme. And it looks like Laflamme got spun by Walkowicz on that when he tried to back off. Let's take a look at the replay and see exactly what happened here on this whole ordeal. Oh, yeah.
We saw him in one camera view and then didn't see him in the next.
Didn't see it
where
again.
he went.
His car I was actually wondering for a second, like his car just disappeared. And then he got tapped by Walkowicz onto the turn. So, oh, man, just a little bit too much battling going on there on the wet. And, and Berg still getting pressure from Cockcroft, though, once again. And from all the drivers, by the way, again, season leader Wagner, P9 right now, he's the only, I mean, he's basically the driver has already pit, and you can see he's got a little bit of a lead over Berg, and we have Wicks and Morrison. You can see drivers trying to cool off their tires. Yeah, they're having trouble. They're definitely with trouble here as Berg and Cockcroft trying to maybe get their tires cooled off just a bit as Berg goes deep once again. That might give room for Cockcroft on the inside. But he backs off, and we're going to do this another time. But yes, Wagner leading the drivers who have already pit. Now, he had a little bit of an issue earlier on the race, so even with the top driver, Sweeney, by the way, still leading with Big Daddy there up top, he might still not be able to overtake him once they pit. And there it is, as you can see there on the weather predictions. More rain coming in about 10 minutes, folks. So this damp track is going to switch right back over to wet. And they'll have to slow down. That's going to be tricky. If you have this mid-lap, you think you have that grip, and then all of a sudden you don't. You got to be really careful not to send your car wide here. As Hacksaw had a yellow there temporarily, he is back on track. He did make a mistake there on turn 1, but he's okay now. Let's switch over to camera over to Osborne. Here, Jess, currently P4. Let's take a little bit of a drive on his cockpit. Looks like the prayers have worked for him so far. He's able to keep his Porsche there at the top spots. Boomstra, teammate, following pretty close. About a 10-second gap between the two, but Osborne just waiting for an opportunity to attack.
Yeah, and this cat and mouse game between these two has been going on almost the entire race so far. With neither one really making a mistake.
Yeah, and you can see there they're following the dry line. Not much spray at all compared to earlier. As we saw, there was really raining quite hard. So the dry line has formed, but that does affect your pressures and your tire temps. You have to be careful. Again, we talked about, you see some of these drivers getting into the wet and trying to cool them off, bring those pressures down.
And this is a pretty meaningful run for Jess and Selena this week. They're both doing really well so far this race. It looks like they'll probably both be solidly in the top 10 if things stay the way they are. But they, of course, are doing battle for the lead of the team championship with THR Boot. Of course, Jess and Selena with Comic Racing, Lunar Motorsports, trailing quite a bit at the moment for THR Boot. But with Berg having a little bit of a struggle today, it'll be interesting to see if they can close that points gap just a little bit.
Yeah, currently, I mean, Sweeney does have that lead, and that's a heck amount of points to take, but it requires some magical things to happen there at the top of the board for things to maybe, you know, for them to get a little bit closer in the standings, as Berg is currently P12, as mentioned, so it might even itself out to an extent, but, you know.
Yeah, very well may. Fourth and fifth right now for Osborne and Boonstra. We'll see what it's like after their pit cycles, if they can get through that cleanly and maintain that, of course, as we come with down close to 25 minutes left in the race, just under halfway. Yeah, this could be a big week for them, and as we mentioned, this next stretch of tracks here is not going to be the best track for McLarens. Of course, most of all the drivers here are really talented and can oftentimes overcome the shortcomings of some of their cars and disadvantages at certain tracks, but definitely not a couple weeks that are going to play into the McLaren's strengths. So it could be a good time to capitalize on any struggles by our current points leaders.
Yeah, we talked about that McLaren not having the strength here at Oulton, but Sweeney holding on to the lead, about 5-second lead over Big Daddy. Looks like he made a mistake, and Sweeney capitalized on that, opened up a little bit of a bigger gap. But now, by the way, as Poe and Osborne are still on track, they right ahead of him, Herrera, who's a blue flag, comes out of the pit, so slowing them down just a bit, giving them a little bit more room, basically, for Big Daddy and Sweeney to open up and get a little bit of a gap. But these two have been having a great race so far, both Poe, Osborne. And Jess, they're just keeping up with the leaders so far here at Oulton. So probably his best race as Herrera just goes straight. Says, I maybe missed my brake marker and I'm out of here. And that might have given Jess a little bit of a run. Go back on his,
Probably just trying to stay out of the way there.
Maybe he saw that. But look at that. Look at Jess putting some pressure. And this might actually lead on the inside, but Poe says, nope, not in here at all. You're going to have to take the outside line. Out breaks him. Trying to switch, but Poe, great defending moves there, just said, still, this is not happening. It's going to be tough. This is going to be tough for Jess, so.
Yeah, we saw Jess there having to get off that dry line just a little bit. Wasn't able to put the power down quite the same as Poe was able to.
And Herrera has moved out of the way, but he's following them a little bit closer on the picture-in-picture. See his BMW.
Looking at the chat, Sean Daniels saying one unnamed driver has switched to dry tires for some reason. Would that driver's name happen to contain a certain geometric shape? namely a cube.
Maybe I'm not sure. I mean, you did mention that Cube Mastery is not having a good day, so we're just gonna leave it at that.
Cube Master, of course, is Sean's Sean's teammate there for GRR, cheaper than therapy.
Yep. And I'll tell you, switching to a little bit of a different battle going on as well. We have Rufus currently in P7, has yet to pit, but Wagner, again, coming through again. No major mistakes from Wagner after that one we saw earlier. He's trying to work his way back up the field and trying to gain as much time as he can, but Sweeney with the lead, about a 7-second lead over Big Daddy. So, and again, the track is damp, and this might be an issue for Big Daddy's tire pressures, where maybe Sweeney's isn't within range. So he's able to open up that gap, but he will get wet in just a little bit, about 10 minutes or so.
Yeah, that's where it'll get interesting as to what these drivers are running for tire pressures and things, because they might have adjusted. Some of them might have adjusted their tires to the damp conditions, to expecting it to maybe stay that way, but then, you know, we got the wet coming before the end of the race, which will play into things a little more and make certain cars faster and take some speed away from others.
And we all know how ACC treats your grip status when you're not within that range. It's basically a slide galore. So if you're not in that range,
it's like a light switch. You have grip or you don't. If you're not in that range, your grip switch got turned off. Your grip's privileges have been suspended until further notice.
You might as well put ice skates there and maybe do the same lap. So,
hey, if it gets cold enough on track right now, that might not be a bad idea. As you see, just noticing our standings, do right back up to 16th after that early spin with a little bit of assistance. So good recovery run so far if you can keep this going.
And I'll tell you who I don't see anymore. Again, it was a string of issues, one after another, but Maxwell has left the race. His teammate Ruff is still out here. Again, that's who Wagner is following. But there's a couple of issues there with Maxwell. Again, maybe a tap and then a spin, and he decided not to continue racing, as Wagner is just trying to find a way around Rufus. And this might be it here, leading down after the chicane. And yep, that might have just, position-wise, Wagner has taken that from Rufus, moved up another spot.
Easily clears, and he might have just let him by there. Decided probably didn't want to lose any more time than he had to into that chicane by getting offline.
And I'll tell you who has already pit. I mean, basically getting his pit out of the way. Osborne Jess is already out of the pits as well. He is about 7-second differential between Wagner and Osborne. So this will be a little bit of a hunt, as maybe see a battle between Porsche and McLaren unfold. And Boonstra is in the pits as well. So far down to P8 now, so it looks like he's dropped quite a few spots based on that 10-second difference between herself and her teammate, but out on the track she goes. P9. And Berg with a drive-through. So you can see there currently P10, P11, so he's already taken care of his pit stop, so maybe not the best day for Berg, and maybe due to track cuts and not, but this is going to definitely affect standings for the lead, for team lead, and even himself. Again, Sweeney's actually just 2 points ahead of Berg on the individual standings, so as it stands, Sweeney's going to open a huge gap between the teammates.
Big complications for both the individual and team standings, because as we mentioned before, those two Porsches that we've been talking about, Osborne and Boonstra, both looking to capitalize on what they look as a less than optimal day for the two McLarens of THR Boot, of course being Berg and Sweeney. Well, of course, Sweeney actually having an optimum day, but not so much for Berg.
Yeah, you have to serve that drive-through within the next 20 minutes or so, but that's definitely going to drop in quite a few standings. And He's following Cockcroft, and that's the track has sort of spread out a bit here, and this doesn't usually happen.
Ooh, big off for Poe in P3.
Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. Let's take a look at the replay and see what happened. Switched his back. Oh, it's that deadly turn. A little too
Just
wide.
Half a tire on the grass. That's all it takes.
Yep. And,
So easy to overdrive that.
and thankfully, oh my goodness, hopefully he didn't merge there, but it looks like it was okay. But no damage to his car. That his tires were on the grass.
No damage. Yeah, we saw so many other drivers hit that tire barrier right before the corner after doing that, as we see another off from Cockcroft.
Cockcroft. Let's see what happened. Is he
just lost it on the curbs on exit.
oversteer? Yeah, out of the turn one as he's out of the way there, but looks like no damage either. And the wet
Damage might have stalled it. Oh, and did another donut.
Oh my goodness. But he's back on track now, but that is a lot of positions he has dropped. And you can
That's
see
what they don't tell you. The grass is wet too, so if you try to get back on too aggressively, you're just going to do donuts.
And Wicks also out of the track. He goes P19, but he is nearly side by side with Potvin. But looks like no major damage either.
Just a slight off there.
So now Spacebaker, and they're on the chat. You guys are talking about Michael Dyer. Benefit of quite a few spots here as some of these drivers have spun. He's been kept in pretty good, and he's already gotten his split out of the way. And his teammate, by the way, Dudley, has been moving up as much as he can after that initial drive through. He does have the fastest lap of the race, Dudley, 39.152. Whereas Sweeney, our race leader, has a 39.190. Now, track is still damp. I think these drivers are pushing a little too hard here. These are not easy conditions to race. I'll tell you that. You don't want to be in scenarios like this very often. So.
Yeah, good day for Marty. He's had a few rough weeks. It's definitely a good redemption race for him, running ahead of his teammate. We mentioned Dudley a minute ago. He's actually had the fastest lap for about the past 6 laps consecutively, running right in the mid-40s, 40.5, 40.6 range, consistently the fastest car on track.
And this might have to do with his pressures, and if he's nailed them down, at least with these track conditions, he's benefiting him. But I mean, so far, didn't look like the rain is getting any worse. He might, but maybe it looks like in 10 minutes towards the end of the race, but might have benefited him overall. So the British Petroleum Racing Team so far doing, again, not the greatest start for Dudley and Spacebaker, but they're doing what they can. And Berg is like glued in now behind Spacebaker for that provisionary P12. And he's already served his drive-through, by the way, so Berg's got that cleared. And thankfully, this is one of those tracks where the drive-through is kind of like, you want to get a drive-through, you want to get it here, because it's fairly quick. We know some tracks is just an absolute total nightmare. So at least he's got his drive-through done here at Oulton Park.
Yeah, absolutely. Real short pit lane, quick in, quick out. Definitely not too bad as things go for drive-throughs. Better than serving it at Coda or Spa or something like that.
Oh, man. Spa, you might as well just park and have coffee. That's how long it takes to get out of there. I mean, literally, it's just crazy. Now, interestingly enough, when a race at Spa doesn't have all the pit stalls used, they open up that section right after turn 1, so that you can exit there instead of down the runway way down there where you normally see here at ACC and GT cars. So it's rare, but as you can see, Berg trying to coming up, and as they also have Adams ahead of him. Let's go in a little bit of an in-car cockpit drive as he's trying to go around Spacebaker. Now Adams right ahead of him as well, so this has kind of become a little bit of a little group, as LaFlamme is not too far back either. Trying to avoid those curbs as much as you can, especially on the McLaren. But super close. Trying to get Spacebaker offset a bit, but he does not bite that.
It's another team having a good day right ahead of them. You mentioned Adams right there with Big Daddy in second, and Adams running 11th currently. A good points day for them as team championship goes. Berg, it's interesting to see his different line. You can see him trying to keep as much in the dry line as possible by changing up his entry. Where he'll take a really deep entry, really slow down right before the middle of the corner, and then curve it hard back down so he's in that dry patch for the exit. He's not able to quite do that on that turn as he gets just a little too deep on the brakes and has to straighten it out a bit to avoid running into the back of Space Baker there.
And one thing to mention, by the way, you can see as we went in here on cockpit cam, a lot more spray coming from the car ahead of you. Track is back to wet conditions for basically until the end of the race at this point. Again, you got to adjust on the fly. You don't know when that happens. Space Baker trying to cool off his tires a bit. And the turn of death, what I've called, is quite a few cars going a little wide there and some into the barriers. It looks like Berg has a better exit, but it might not be enough leading into the chicane as Space Baker says, I'm shutting that door. Not through here.
Yeah, Berg got two tires halfway in the grass. Oh, they go almost completely in the grass right there.
He's got to worry about Laflamme. And Do-Right.
And Do-Right, both. There might split him three wide. Not quite.
My goodness,
Laflamme's going to get to the inside. Laflamme through the grass. It's completely off.
He just stays out of there, though. Oh boy, Laflamme and Do-Right. Looks like Do-Right makes his way through. Laflamme actually loses 4 positions, basically. Well, 3, because Cockcroft made his way through as well. But Laflamme with a drive-through, by the way. And that might have been through that cut. He went wide into the turn, and his steward said, nope, that's a third strike, basically. Well, 4th, and now gave him a drive-through for that maneuver.
Yeah, we saw an off for both Sweeney and Poe in 2nd and 3rd. They're going to keep their respective spots. Big Daddy's actually going to go through to 1st now, as Sweeney must have had a really big off, and maybe there was some trouble on the rejoin because ended up having Poe off track right nearby.
No, looks like Sweeney has taken care of his pit stop, and that might have been the reason. Big Daddy does have a 15-second lead. Let's see, and he has
a rejoin issue.
Oh, he's got a 16. Oh, as Big Daddy goes wide on last turn here.
Trouble for all 3 leaders.
No, but Sweeney has already taken care of his pit stop, so he's clear, and Big Daddy has yet to clear it, and so is Poe and Hacksaw. So it looks like it's okay,
sure.
But so it looks like Sweeney rejoined.
It was, but he was off track. We caught it on the second
side
for just a second. Yep.
Gotcha. Okay, but it looks like Big Daddy also had an off track. So a couple of these, again, the track did get wetter, and you need to be very, very careful. Again, now the last 10 minutes of the race, don't push as hard as you were pushing for the past 20 minutes or so, because it's not going to work. So
we do see is that same battle developing again for that 9th position between Boonstra and Walkowicz.
Let's follow along with Walkowicz, a little bit of a passenger view on what he's seeing. Again, all that spray once again. And Boonstra, a heck of a race so far at P9. I mean, she always puts her caution somewhere up there. And keeping it steady, and a couple of drivers yet to pit ahead of her, Ruffus and Morrison. Walkowicz almost goes into her rear. Boonstra holds it. Just slid through turn 1. When a controller is able to keep that together.
That just unbelievable how she manages to do that, catch a slide on a controller. I tried it once when ACC first came out. There just was no way.
I mean, she almost touches the grass there that we've seen a few drivers do. But yeah, I mean, on the wet, this is already hard to catch a slide on the dry, and you're doing on the wet with a controller. I don't know what to say here. I don't know what to say.
As we're following this battle, we see Dudley Do-Right put another car behind him. He passes Berg for 13th and still running the fastest laps in the field at the moment.
So it looks like Dudley here, and weather conditions has not affected his pace. Yeah, still throwing the fastest laps now. The track has slowed down. Drivers are actually turning about 41s now from 39s a few laps ago. But Dudley just on a row. If he only didn't have that drive through to begin with, he would have probably been way up there with the leaders, but just hate to see that, as this is a huge train, by the way, which is led by Adams. We have Spacebaker, Dudley, Berg, Cockcroft, and Whitescarver all together here within less than a second of each other. So
yeah, there's a team photo opportunity right there with the two British Petroleum cars right next to each other.
just following together.
Definitely easy to spot on the track. Makes our jobs easy as announcers to be able to find those cars on track almost instantaneously, being that bright lime green.
And Dudley again up there on championship points as well. We'll see if there's a little bit of a teamwork game going on here, as Berg behind Dudley at the moment, also hunting for points there at the top of the board. But so far, no changes here. And ahead of him, you see there Rodriguez and another driver. He has yet to pit Morrison in that 30-second penalty. Let's take a little bit of an in-cam drive with Dudley, as he's kind of in the middle of this whole thing. And let's see what he's seeing at the moment. He's seeing his teammates spray all over his windshield, and probably some of Adams as well. It looks like Spacebaker lifts there on the straight. Let's switch back out. Again, teamwork a little bit as he slots his car back there just before Berg has any attempt to overtake. So we'll give a little bit of a gap for Dudley to open up and possibly catch Adams. So Dudley, just a great race, a recovery race so far, has been on target.
Definitely a good move there, and probably an opportunity for Spacebaker to follow his line a little
and
bit.
Adams goes wide. Adam into the wall practically.
Big impact with the wall there. Gets it back on track safely, but man, it might be some pretty good damage from that.
Yeah, he almost bounced off the with the barrier, but let's go ahead with Berg a turn of view for a bit here, as he is under full attack. He has Cockcroft basically behind him, and Spacebaker just practically ahead of him. You see, oh my goodness, that might give room for Cockcroft. Back on the power he goes. This will benefit Berg leading to the turn. Cockcroft backs off, but not entirely. Cockcroft goes wide and spins. Pushed it a little too hard. Oh man, he just like, should I go, should I not? And that gives Berg room to go through. So let's go back to Berg as he's trying to go around some traffic with Q-Master. Whitescarver coming through as well. Oh man, what a sequence of events here.
This train gets a little bit spaced out here. Not too much else going on track. Of course, that Boonstra-Walkowicz battle still going strong.
Yeah, we'll switch over. Let's go a little bit of an in-cam with Walkowicz. As I check on the chat, it said, do the drivers know where each other stand? Was that intentional to let the teammate pass? Sorry, I know nothing. No, I mean, yeah, it's good to ask. So they're teammates, and they most likely have some sort of radio channel they have just between themselves. And once Dudley is approaching Spacebaker says, hey, you know what, you're fighting for championship points, I'll let you through. And it's a team game, because then he's almost holding back Berg, who is actually in contention for points as well. So it's already a tough track to overtake. So Spacebaker, great team player so far.
That and if you're racing side by side with somebody, that generally means you're both going a little bit slower than the rest of the cars. Since you're not racing the optimal line, you're racing a different line on the track than you normally would in order to make that pass. So rather than slowing both of them down to make that happen, he just figured he'd let them by on the straight so they can both take the optimal line and not lose any time, since Do-Right was faster anyways.
As we do see that going again, this battle began Boonstra and Walkowicz as Ruffus has gone off. And he is going off. Let's take a look at the replay here, folks, and see what happened there. Turn one goes a little too deep and touches that grass, which is a recipe for disaster. You get on the power in there. It is a right into the barrier as well, so that's going to put some damage on his Ferrari.
Well, there's a lot of meme accounts out there that tell you to touch grass, but you don't want to do it today.
Ruffus is almost, at this point, he's just grass mowing everything. He went completely off again. His Ferrari was sideways, and he has some major damage on the front now, so this not the best event here for Ruffus.
Just a note, Maxi Poe in the pits on the 3rd position right now.
Let's keep an eye
See
on
how long that
this.
stop was in just a second.
He nailed
5-second stop, so optimal.
nailed that stop. And it looks like Morrison, who has gone ahead of him, but he has yet to pit. So
Jump back on with boot.
looks like
Apologies, I'm
LaFlamme.
not sure what's going on. I seem to have had a disconnect.
And I'm still live. You're still there, or did you get a disconnect on the server?
Server disconnect. We'll try to get that fixed in just a second.
No worries. And for a second there, I thought that myself, but everything looks okay. LaFlamme Friday, a couple of yellows here as well in the same turn. The rain is pouring. 2 minutes left on this race. Big Daddy has gone into the pits, by the way. That gave Sweeney the lead back. So Sweeney, with a 15-second gap, has practically thrown the perfect race so far here. 15-second gap with, by the way, and Osborne has, P3. P3 for Osborne. Those prayers are coming through just fine at Jesse. You need to have them pray every race at this point for you. So, P3, and he's putting some pressure on Big Daddy for that P2. And then Wagner, P4 now. Again, that one mistake earlier, that's cost him some time, but P4, heck of a race for him as well. As Daddy goes wide into turn 1, that might give Osborne the lead, the P2. And Big Daddy puts his Porsche all over the track and says, I'm not letting you through here. He's like right down the middle. So Osborne just, my goodness. So what a battle here. 2 minutes left in the race, and Osborne, outstanding race so far. He's actually started P11. He's up to P8. Excuse me, P2, 8 spots gained, excuse me. As Jess goes wide a bit, Big Daddy takes the inner line. And we're going to switch to this battle down here again with Selena, Walkowicz still behind, Poe ahead of them.
And as I was trying to mention before the disconnect, right as I disconnected, I was watching them go side by side. Walkowicz actually had her passed for just a minute, but then he got loose off the corner and she passed him right back on the next straight, actually in this very corner last time by.
Yeah, it's been kind of a that curve there, right before the curve, has been a death zone. I mean, a lot of drivers just getting loose, and some going into the barriers, some sparing themselves, but that's been the death for a lot of drivers here tonight as pit window is officially closed, and Sweeney has started the final lap here at Oulton Park in the wet. And looks like Boonstra is still going through and holding Walkowicz. Walkowicz absolutely crazy on the back of that Porsche. Looks like side by side. And this is going to go, and Walkowicz backs off, says, I'm not having any of this. And that's giving room for Hacksaw closing in just a bit. There, Hacksaw P8. As Walkowicz on the inside, there they go together on turn 1. Oh my goodness, so close. As they're going to go to turn 1, that BMW's got major speed gains here in turn 1. Walkowicz is going to challenge that again. Takes it on the inside. There might be a switch. Boonstra on the inside again. So this is going to benefit Walkowicz. He might have finally gone through. Boonstra hits that one little bump you do not want to hurt as Walkowicz goes wide into the grass. Almost takes Selena out in Hacksaw. Oh my God. What an end to this race. Unbelievable. Walkowicz not able to get through, and Selena comes out clean. As ahead of Selena, Walkowicz, excuse me, there was a blue flag, excuse me. I was just all over the place, but wow. So Selena holds on to that position. We're going to switch back here to Sweeney as he's coming through on the last turn right ahead. Ruffus, and he's going to come through with that win here at the wet Oulton Park as he comes through. So 2 race wins for the same team. Bergen crosses the line. Oh, what a race. Swinny, impeccable race from him as takes that win and become Big Daddy holding on to that P2. Had some serious pressure from Osborne, but then Osborne, hell of a race from P3 all the way from P11. There's your podium, guys. And then coming through P4, Wagner, great race for him as well. Coming through the line, you see him coming through. We'll soon see Poe. But what a race here. So I couldn't keep up at the end, Alex. It was just too many things going on. Whoever crosses the line as a blue flag. We see Poe with that P5. And then soon we're going to see Selena coming through as P6, Hacksaw P7, and Walkovic still holding on to that P8, so lost the spot there at the end. And then we see Dudley do right with that drive-through, still a heck of a race, puts it in the top 10. And then down in P10, after all the issues he's had earlier, now he's coming through there. Berg, P10 for you. Got around Space Baker eventually, and we have White's Carver Cockcroft coming through on the back as well. A couple of drivers still coming through the last turn. We see Rose coming through the line. And Adams, who had a few issues earlier in the race, should be coming through the line in just a little bit as well. That's Friday, and the flag, and then Adams comes through. We have Wicks coming through. We have Harold as well. And Morrison, P17. We have Payan coming through with that P19, excuse me, P18, and then Potvin. And last driver should be crossing the line ahead. It was Ruffus. And that ends our Oulton Park session, folks. What a race. What was that? Couldn't keep up with everything, guys. We tried as much as we can. Too much action going on. We're going to get some interviews going on here for you guys and talk to, see if we can pull in our race winner. We're going to see if we can pull Swinny in. We're going to see if we can bring in Big Daddy and Jess, if he's able to have a little bit of a conversation with us as far as how his race went. So give us just a few seconds here as we get things going. And Jess normally runs our race debrief after, so we'll see if he's able to come in at least for a little bit of a chat. I know he normally runs that race chat after the race goes through, but let's see if we can bring our race winner. He is available on the chat. Let's bring him over to our cool down room before we bring him over here for a little bit of a chat and see how his race went. And here we go. All right, we're bringing Chris Swinny at the booth. Can you hear us at the booth here, Chris?
Oh, it's been a long time since I've been up here.
Well, congrats on the win, man. You had an impeccable race.
Thank you.
I gotta say, I mean, you benefited from a few drive-throughs at the start, and you got ahead of, you know, basically Big Daddy. You kept that gap, and then you saw a couple of mistakes there going on. You capitalized. Just tell us, how did the race kind of go throughout a little bit, like different stages? How did it go for you?
Yeah, so in the beginning, I saw the 2 drive-throughs, so I knew I had a little pressure off of me then. But by the time, you know, that cycled around, I, you know, was feeling the pressure from Daddy. And, you know, he was closing in, but it was manageable as I was driving. But what I was more concerned about was the weather. I had seen before the race started, and I had my pressures for, you know, medium rain consistent throughout the race. And I saw the 3rd cloud symbol as light rain. I'm like, oh crap, you know, I'm going to be over pressures and possibly have to change my tires. And then sure enough, the rain lightened up, the track got hot. I saw my red, I saw red on all the tires in there, and
We were
pressures were
wondering
going
about
up to, dude, they were at 33 at one point.
Man.
So
That is
I was
terrible.
prepped to change. I was considering changing tires really for a few minutes there, and I had it all dialed in to drop it like 2 psi at least on there, and I kept watching it, and then it saved me when it started like raining again. I heard the crew chief say the rain's coming back, and then the temperature started dropping. I mean, they were up to like 80 degrees at one point, all my tires. So
Oh my God.
yeah, so it came back to me though, and you know, lowered, and then I was going to see what's going to happen at the pit. I knew Big Daddy was probably 7 seconds behind, and I just pit. It was a perfect stop, pulled out. And then I don't know if it was the first lap or the second lap. I see Poe, who hadn't pit. He was in second. And he was shooting through that gap, at the end of the straight
Mhm.
on turn 10. And I was like, you know what? This is going to happen. It's going to happen. I was just taking my normal braking marker and I slowed as much as I could and just ran right into him. Instead of trying to veer around or anything, I just decided, okay, it's a rain race. I'm not going to be too bad if I lose aero on this. So I just hit him straight on. I didn't want any suspension damage.
Mhm.
And then I kept going and I was like getting the same lap time and was thinking, well, crap, that didn't even affect me at all. But then I noticed it. It did on the straights. I don't know if it was a combination of my tires just getting old, but I feel like it did affect a little bit. But yeah, I was watching Big Daddy again up there. He hadn't pit yet, and he was like 18 seconds at one point,
Mhm.
and I didn't know how long the pit was going to take. But then his time kept dropping down to like 11. So I figured he must have made a mistake, and then
Yep.
from there on out, it was just hot lapping, hoping I didn't get a back marker crashing me. But there were a couple freak out moments where right after the chicane, actually, both of them were there. Two cars, not one. It was like two cars each time, and I had to on one of them I had to split them, and
Mhm.
then the other one I had to go and drive over the curb on the left side to get by, and so a little code brown there. But yeah, after that it was just trying to stay on the curb inside the curbs, and I actually had 3 track warnings too.
Mhm.
So every time I took turn one, I was freaking out and let off the gas a little bit, and yeah, I got in my head, kept thinking I can never take this turn right, and yeah, I was always lifting right there at the end. But fortunately enough, I had enough gap after he pit. I saw he was ways back, and it was all good from there.
Yeah, I mean, we started wondering when we saw the track go damp, and a lot of the drivers that had that form that dry line, you see them kind of going into the wet because we're already
Yeah,
thinking we're saying that these things are cooking. So the good news was that everybody was dealing with that. So not just you, but you didn't make
yeah,
mistakes, but a lot of people did. We caught a lot of people going wide and things like that, and for the most part, you're basically up there on the race and kind of like chilling up there at the top yourself and Big Daddy, where there's so many things going on around the whole track. And we saw again, yeah, we saw a little mistake there. We caught a little mistake. Big Daddy made a mistake there on the last turn towards the end, but I know he was hovering about 2 seconds for me for the most time, but he ended up a good 15 seconds behind again after everything turned out. Um, but still,
yeah,
man, congrats
yeah.
on the win, man. P1. I mean, you
Thanks.
handle it. Rain race, you never know what happens. You had a pretty good practice race yesterday. I kind of had mentioned that you could be up there, and you didn't disappoint. So, P1, killer points there. You opened up a little bit of a gap between yourself and your teammate because you guys were pretty close in individual points, but you still gained a lot of points as a team. But anyways, well, Adam, do you have anything for
Well, yeah,
Chris?
speaking of team, that's back-to-back wins for your team, THR Boot. How's that feel?
Sweet. Oh, that feels good. Uh, I should probably be more excited, like Andy last time. Um, it's just not in me tonight. I don't know. I'm sweating it out.
Well, still, man.
But I'm stoked. I am super stoked, and I saw Nick was up there too.
Mhm.
I think what E3, and yeah, if only we had Corey in here, it'd be an all-around team win there.
Well, hopefully he
Absolutely, and
will
that's got to
join.
be a yeah. Hopefully, we get him in, get his hardware issues solved before the before the end of the season. At least be able to show off his skill a little bit here. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's
for
got to be
sure.
a great confidence booster before we go to Indy. How's your outlook looking for next week at this point?
Sure is. I didn't even know what track it was, but I'll start thinking about that now and do my same routine. I turn on the game on Sunday and put in about an hour and dial in my setup and pressures and all that, and then I join the Monday race, maybe with a little practice before that, and then usually just wait till 6 or 9 p.m. Eastern to join the driver briefing and start off fresh there. So that's kind of my routine. And Indy, I don't remember how well I do there, but looking forward to trying it out this weekend.
Yeah, we'll definitely hope you can continue the success of the past 2 weeks here, and we'll be watching for even more next week.
Right on.
Congrats again.
Thanks.
All right, Chris, send you back to the race chat, man. Congrats again, man. And here we go, guys. Let's bring in Jess. You know, he wants to talk today. Let's bring him over to our booth. We want to see, because there were prayers involved, all kinds of stuff involved. We're going to bring him and get his side of the story. All right, Jess. You hear us
Hey,
at the
Raphael.
booth.
Hey, Adam.
How's it going, Jess?
Hey,
Oh,
we,
it's going
Congrats,
great
man.
over here, man. Thank you, man. I think this is my, if memory serves, this is my first podium in the team series. I've finished P3 before in endurance series where I've had other people carrying me, but this is my first by myself, and oh my God, I'm thrilled.
I mean, we saw you moving up. You didn't have the best qualifying session, but there were like prayers involved
I
in
did
your
not.
race and all kinds of stuff. I don't know what kind of voodoo stuff you got going on, but hey, P3 all the way to the
Yeah.
podium. And your teammate Selena did a heck of a race herself and was holding back Walkowicz there for like every single possible maneuver she could. And Walkowicz pushed a little too hard and ended up losing it, so she kept position. And so you guys gained a lot of points, at least this time around, which
Oh, I'm
which is
glad
pretty
to
good.
hear it. I'm positive she helped me out a lot in the race, wittingly or not, by, as you mentioned, now holding off him for a while, because I was stuck behind Poe right from the get go. But like you said in the qualifying, I was hoping to do a little bit better than P11. I was coming into this race pretty confident based off the practice session times and the practice race yesterday. I knew I had the pace. I just had to keep my nose clean. And fortunately, thank God, I managed to do that. And right off the jump, I was just stuck behind Poe for a long time. Kudos to him. He was a brick wall. The only way I was able to get around him was when he pit before I did, and I kept going. And I heard y'all mention that he went off.
Yep.
And that was about the 20 minutes left, and that's when I knew I was on lock for the podium, because all I needed to win was an undercut on him, and I was at least P3. What I was not expecting was to see P2 leave the pits right in front of me, because I had been taking the last like 25 minutes super easy. I knew that I didn't know I wasn't getting another spot, but I knew I just had to keep it clean to not lose my spot. But I feel like if I pushed a bit more, I might have been in front of him when he exited the pits. And then I wouldn't have been stuck behind him when he had that very sketchy moment in the last, what was it, 3 laps, lap 34
Yep.
or so. Oh man, what a race. I'm super happy.
Yeah, I saw you. You were gunning it for that P2 for a while, and then I know
I
last
wanted
lap
it.
I
thought I had it.
there were so many things going on the whole race that we switched between. All of a sudden, there was like he had about a 2.5 second gap ahead of you. So it's like maybe he backed
Yeah, that
off. Maybe
turn
there
one
was
was crazy.
we were
He went kind of wide, and I had to compromise the line to get back on. That ruined his exit out of turn 1, and I would have beat him to turn 2 if he
Yep.
didn't have a bit of a wiggle across the track. I had nowhere to go.
Well, he put his
So
Porsche in
awesome
the
racing.
middle of the track, so you couldn't find a way around him.
Yeah, a lot of fun though.
Oh man, but yeah, no, congrats, man. It's still P3 podium. Adam, what you got for Jess?
Yeah, I just want to say congrats on a strong day for the whole team, of course. Selena just rock solid as always too, and your podium that should close that points gap a little bit as far as team standings go.
Yeah,
with
not sure
Andy
if that gets
Berg
us
having a
closer to
little bit of a hard
P1,
day.
but it certainly solidifies our P2 for now.
Yep.
And I'm just really happy to finally pull my own weight, because Selena has been finishing 3, 4, 6 positions in front of me every race. So it's about time I put up.
Yeah, we just watched her race and we're just she caught a slide on a controller. I'm just wondering. I don't even know how she does that. Like I don't
Me
know.
neither, man. She's a machine.
That's just I just saw her Porsche sliding through turn 2, and I'm like I wouldn't have caught that, especially on the rain. So
Casually drifting in the wet.
it was like it was on purpose. I'm like, what is this? Like anyway. But cool, Jess. Well, I'll send you back to D3 to 4 race chat. Take too much of your time, but congrats again, man.
Thanks, man. And thanks all for putting on a good show.
You got it, man.
See you.
All right, let's see. I was gonna bring in our P2 Big Daddy, but his mic is on mute. I was gonna bring one more driver. Let's bring in Nick. I mean Wagner. He's our standings leader still, and let's get a little bit of his feedback. I know he didn't have the best qualifying, but he did move his way up to P4. So let's get a little bit of his side of the story. How did his race go?
Yeah.
Let's see here. Here we go. Let's bring in
Nick, how's it going, man? Got us?
What up?
Hey, I mean, you were definitely an early favorite in today's race. You had pace all day long, of course. Take us through what happened throughout your race. What hurdles did you have to overcome for the day to get it back up toward the front?
Yeah, my qualifying wasn't too great, but then I realized I was on my race setup, not my qualifying setup, so that held me back quite a bit. But P8 wasn't too bad. And then I saw the rain was gonna start going away, and I already lowered my pressures after yesterday with the dry line, but obviously not enough. So they got stupid high and hot, and then I went off and spun a little bit. So it was just sloppy day for me. But hey, P4, I'll take that.
Yeah, absolutely. Great day overall, and that's going to keep you right in that. I was saying this before the race. You haven't finished worse than fourth the whole season so far, so you're keeping that streak alive for sure. And as we go into Indianapolis next week, we'll hope to keep that alive for maybe the whole season. Only two races left after this week to decide the championship, and of course, you're still right up there in the points lead. Followed by Dudley, and a little bit of a rough day for Dudley, but he recovered pretty well too. Got back up to, I believe, P9 on the day. But I believe you still have the points lead, if I'm not mistaken, overall.
Yeah, open a little bit of
by
a
about
gap.
50 points or so. Yeah, a
Mhm.
little bit of a gap.
But
Yeah,
still, Nick, obviously, what do you think about Indy next week? How are you looking?
I haven't raced Indy too awful much. I know in THR we did a race there, and pace seemed pretty decent. It's a track where you really have to keep your momentum up and be consistent throughout the whole track. But I'm gonna put in some practice for sure for that race, but we'll see. I'm going in kind of confident, so hopefully I can keep that championship alive.
Well, I know you, even though you're finishing up there on top, you're catching up as far as team standings, even though your teammate has not taken part on the championship, but still keeping up your team up there. So still you can't kill her pace. You did what you could with what you had, and we'll see you next week at Indy.
Awesome, thank you as always.
Come on. Alrighty. So those are the 3 interviews we got for you guys. A little bit there.
Yeah.
How did this
Mention that
go?
team standings for viewers who don't know how that's going right now. Nick and Corey Nesbitt are on THR Heel. That's the second THR team. THR Boot, of course, is Sweeney and Berg, who are currently leading the standings. But Nick has been soloing for all but one race so far, and is currently 5th in overall team standings out of a total of, I believe, 25 teams. So currently running 5th by himself with 545 points, just behind Scuderia British Petroleum of Do Right Space Baker with 601 points. So definitely an gap he can overcome if they come upon some bad luck in the next couple of weeks. But for a solo driver to be that high in the team standings is just crazy, and is a testament to, like we mentioned, how consistent he's been, not finishing outside the top 4 all season thus far.
Yeah, as you mentioned, in the gap between team standings, THR Boot P1 and P2, it's roughly about the same. They do have it's a considerable lead, 145 points. I believe it was 153 before that again, since both Jess and Selena finished quite well in the standings, even though with Sweeney winning and Berg didn't have his best race, but still, gap's about the same. And as far as drivers go, by the way, and we'll give you guys more insight next week, but Nick does have the lead overall, but Chris Sweeney now has in P2. He's been super consistent. So he's got a 55-point lead for Nick compared, Chris and then Dudley in P3 now, and then we have Andy Berg in P4, followed by Selena and Mike Gino, who I didn't see him tonight. So, but we'll see. We'll see what happens next week. Back to dry racing at Indy. But before we go, we're gonna have to switch over to our sponsors. And Adam, did you want to do the honors on that?
Absolutely.
Here we go.
Of course. So just a huge thank you to our SRA sponsors and our title sponsors for supporting us, as well as support from our other sponsors, Documise. Documise is a modern business solution for product management. So go to documise.com if you want to learn more about that today, to keep your products and features and development organized between teams and across product lines. Go ahead and check that out. And of course, support from Retro Saga. That's a North American based gaming company that provides accessories for your favorite classic systems, including Nintendo, Sega, PlayStation, and so many more. Enhance your retro gaming experience today at retrosaga.ca. And of course, a big thank you to our affiliates, Track Racer. Track Racer makes awesome sim rigs, and you can experience redefined gaming with Track Racer's high quality sim rigs and accessories. Be sure to use code SRATE at checkout to support us. And of course, big thanks to Armamentario. They are a toolbox for ACC that will enhance your chance to win. Enjoy a fully customizable and enhanced HUD and enhanced data to change the way you experienced ACC. And of course, the Go setups used in combination with Armamentario can be dangerous. Uh, they are premium esports setups for everybody. Use our affiliate link on our Discord below in the description underneath this live stream and take your drive to the next level. And speaking of that, be sure to join up in the SRA community. Become a part of SRA Nation and get in here and race yourself. We got places for everybody to race all different skill levels, experience levels. This being D4, of course, there's 3 more divisions above us, and I believe 2 or 3 more below us for this season here in D4. So there are divisions and places for anybody to race. There's endurance racing, of course, racing like this, sprint racing, all different conditions, different car types, mixed class racing, tons of different things, tons of really awesome people in here that you can learn from and, of course, hone your own craft, help improve from, and, of course, race against. So be sure to go down to that Discord link and sign up today. If any of this seems like it would be interesting to you, it's always a good time and always awesome up here being with Raph, commenting on all these drivers racing. And Raph, why don't you take us home?
Thank you so much, Adam. And yes, absolutely. Thank you guys for tuning in tonight. I hope you guys had some fun. We had a lot of action here at Oulton. Rainy race always brings some interesting scenarios, and we saw another first-time winner here this season with Chris Sweeney taking that win last week with Andy Berg. So quite a few new winners basically throughout. It hasn't been consistent at all. But next week, same time, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, we'll be heading out, crossing the Atlantic, heading right over to Indianapolis, folks. You do not want to miss that. It's a super fun track. It's one of my favorites. And with that being said, I appreciate you guys tuning in, and we will see you next week. Take care, everybody.
See you.